why aren't people getting married? Why are those who do get married divorcing? What do the wise have to teach us about marriage? And what do the young have to reveal to us about their views on partnership? And for me, I've been contemplating if you're not combining balance sheets, if you're not trying to have children, if you're comfortable in your own space, what does love and partnership look like at this age? I have some thoughts. And quite frankly, though, I'm really looking for some guidance on some of these things. So please, let's get into it. I am so thrilled to be joined by Miss Sade. She is a 31-year-old podcaster and an entrepreneur. Very happy to have you here with us, Sade.
Thank you.
And we have Mrs. Tate. Now, Mrs. Tate is 81 years old, a former software developer, proud mother of two. But here's the most impressive thing: she's been married for 61 years. So amazing. You're not married, you're dating, married for 61 years. I'm in the middle. I'm looking for advice from you both. Mrs. Tate, I want to start with you because 61 years, I mean, that's amazing.
Mm.
When I was younger and people would say how long they were married and then the audience would applaud, I never got that. Now that I'm older, I understand why people look at it like an accomplishment. Tell us a little bit about your marriage.
Well, first of all, I got married when I was 18. And I think I mentioned before at Howard University, back then, I was pregnant when we got married. So it was a taboo. I mean, those are things that you really had to do, or your
Mhm.
parents would try to work something out. So I was pregnant when I got married. But I'd like to say, I think my husband and I were definitely in love because it was a thing about love at first sight with the both of us when we met at Howard University. I clearly remember I had gone to a party with my girlfriend and we were coming down the stairs and Bob, he was there and our eyes clicked and for some reason it was something was going on. And I walked down the stairs and he walked over to me and grabbed my hand and we just started dancing. And we left that party together. We hadn't said a word to each other and we left. I didn't have sex with him that night.
No judgment if you did. No judgment if you did. I'm impressed with Mr. Tate's game if you did, but no judgment.
So, so, but you always wonder when being pregnant, you always wonder, I wonder, are we married because I was pregnant or because we loved each other that much? It always kind of lingers
Mm.
in your mind. And I think after 61 years, I think we do love each. I love
Yes.
him more today than I did back then. And of
Really?
course, we had our rough patches along the way, like most marriages do. Yeah.
That testimony, I started out by saying, I'm wondering what it looks like, but hearing you say that, it does make me desire a partnership even more. To hear you talk about that, 61 years, that's a really long,
Yes.
long time. This concept of love at first sight, it makes me wonder about the correlation between love and marriage, because I just said the two are not always the same. In some marriages, I feel like they're mutually exclusive. Some people just stay together, but it sounds like you and your husband, 61 years later, you make a conscious decision every day to still be there and in love with each other.
In a sense, it was a conscious decision because when my daughters, I was working at the time, and then we were young because I was 18, he was 21, an only child. He was so a little kind of not spoiled, but you know. So some of the things, and I remember sitting talking with my daughters, and they were like maybe like 6 or 7 at the time, and he'd have done something crazy. And I sat them down and I said, Janine Deidre, I'm thinking about very seriously, I'm gonna leave your father. We're gonna leave your father. And they looked at me and said, What? And they said, and Deidre and my younger daughter said, she said, okay, mom. And my older daughter, Janine, said, then who's going to take care of daddy? We can't just break. And when she said that, I said, well, there goes the part for better or worse. So I said, okay. So I made a commit. I said, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to, work on and work past whatever it is that we're going through.
Wow.
Yes.
There's a story there, and I'm gonna get it, but I'm gonna come back to that.
Okay.
I have so many more questions about that.
Yes.
I want to bring Sade into the conversation, our
Yes.
younger guest here. Now, Sade, you're dating someone,
Mhm.
right? You guys are in an exclusive relationship,
Yes.
and do you want to get married?
I do. I do. It took me a while to kind of come to that because I grew up with my mom really emphasizing that, like, yes, marriage is beautiful. Like, my parents were married, but she's like, ultimately, in this day and age, it's a business. It's like a contract. So if you are getting into a situation, you need to be mindful of like this person could get your assets, your home, like other things. And so I've always been like, well, if I don't need to get married on paper, maybe I won't. I've looked up like the you could be in like a long-term agreement and then you could get paperwork that like if I need to take care of him in the hospital or something like that, I could do that. I've literally looked into that and I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, I think I'll do it.
You do want to get married.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to hear you talk about it. Like it's like a business, like
Yeah.
it's a contract.
Yeah.
And not a life partnership and like a spiritual, mental, emotional connection.
I think that you can have that type of a connection with so many people. It doesn't necessarily just have to be the person you decide to marry. I think when you do jump into marriage, at least from my perspective, it is definitely a conscious decision that you are splitting something from like a business perspective. Because we could just be together and it could be very casual and we don't have to go down to the courthouse and have a piece of paper binding us. And so I've really kind of gone back and forth on those thoughts, but I think it is something that would mean a lot more so to him.
It's interesting hearing the two of you, your perspectives on it, and the way you describe it is very different. And I want to get into how our collective perspectives on marriage have changed through the decades and the generations. We just talked about how it's a steady decline in the Black community specifically. And I got to say, I think our superpower has been that structure, our family unit, our community. And so seeing those statistics, I'm questioning what is happening with us that we are choosing to not partner. We know that you were with child, but you're saying, yeah, I would still choose my husband today. What is it about your partnership that has sustained over 6 decades?
I think, well, to me, marriage is like a lifetime of compromise and rearrange priorities. So that's something you have to always keep in mind that it's not just you in this marriage, you have a partner. So you have to come to some common ground on things. I think that's very, very important.
Yeah.
And I think basically it's a lot of compromise and a lot of rearranging of priorities.
Yeah. It's an interesting quote. Latasha Richardson is the wife of Sam Jackson. And someone asked her, how did you maintain your marriage all these years? And she said, it requires a lot of amnesia and a lot of forgiveness. I think about that. I mean, it's there have to be times where you wonder. And I know me personally, I don't have a lot of either. I don't have a lot of amnesia and I don't have a lot of forgiveness. Something I need to work on, obviously. I mean, I date. I am not in an exclusive relationship, and it just feels like both are slipping away from us. Like it seems like with my your generation has a different attitude, and my generation, sometimes it feels like you show up to the table with animus. What does this person want from me? This men have an attitude sometimes of, what are you trying to get from me? Or, there's history and like bitterness built up.
Yep.
I think women come to the table like, why won't you let me love you? And I'm trying to figure out how to bridge that divide. Your generation, though, I have to say, it does not seem like they value partnership at all.
I really don't know what happened. I talk about this a lot on our podcast. Like, it seems, okay, don't get me wrong. I know I said I think marriage, ultimately it is a contract and you do need to be able to go into a situation saying like, are we going to do this? Because if the IRS come and you done something stupid, like I don't want to be attached to it. But at the same time, I think my generation specifically is so obsessed with money and finances. And it's like, unrealistic. I'm like, what happened to just like a nice man who had a stable job, but everybody want to be a city girl and everybody wants to be taken care of and they want a soft life. but no one's thinking about the compromise. I think that's the decline. I think that's where the disconnect is happening. Like, people don't want to compromise. Everyone thinks it's going to be this perfect situation, which we know it's not. And they're
Yeah.
looking for something that's unrealistic. Like,
Mhm.
I think Michelle Obama was talking about this. She was like, people don't want to do the work. They just want like the wedding and the flowers and the
Right.
pretty,
Mhm.
and then they're done.
Yeah.
And I think that's why my generation, unfortunately, is very confused. They've gotten caught up in the material.